Mr. Peterson, was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War I? Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War II?
It was wrong to intervene in World War I because the sinking of Lusitania, actually they found out that there were munitions. So they were violating the law by sneaking munitions in past the embargo. But after we are attacked in World War II, we have every right to defend ourselves. But we would have never gotten involved in World War II if we would have stayed the hell out of World War I.
Dr. Feldman?
There were a lot of right people, and I'm sure if they could find a way not to get into war, they would have done it. I don't have the egotism to try to say that I have a better idea to what have done at that time. It was a horrible situation, and I don't know whether anything could have been done differently.
Mr. McAfee?
Question, please.
Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War I? Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War II?
Well, in World War II, our entire Pacific fleet was destroyed. We certainly have the right to defend ourselves. What would have happened had we not gotten into the war? In World War I, a far more complex affair and way beyond my time. I'm sorry I do not have the information to answer.
Mr. Perry?
You most certainly have the right to defend yourself, but you do not have the right to provoke someone to attack you in order to defend yourself. The United States military had boats off the shore of Japan to provoke an attack from Japan so that they could claim self-defense. Was it wrong to intervene? Yes, because I'm not touching you at some point becomes aggression.
Governor Johnson, was it wrong for America to intervene in World War I, to have intervened in World War II?
I don't know.
Dr. Feldman, we spend more on our military than the next 15 or so nations combined. How large should our military be? Do we spend too much? Where would you cut?
I tell people I'm not an anarchist or a minarchist. I'm an agonarchist. I'm agnostic. I don't know how big our government should be. I want every tax...
Our military.
And military is part of it. I want every American to decide how much of their taxes do they want to use to support their fellow man, and how much to send to our government for drones and surveillance and all the things that support our military industries. We used to manufacture weapons to support our war efforts. Now we manufacture war efforts to support our weapons industry.
Mr. McAfee.
America claims to love peace, and yet we are the most warlike nation on the planet. Name a country that has not been affected by our military activities directly or indirectly. If you can name one, I'll eat one of my shoes. So they do not exist. We do not need to have troops overseas. We can find a use for them here. Some people may have noticed we have problems, real problems here at home.
Mr. Perry.
We do not need troops in 150-something countries and nearly 900 military bases. I would dare say we do not need a standing army, but at the very least I will say we do not need a standing army funded through theft and coercion. The military should be as big as it can be off of donations and bake sales.
Governor Johnson, we spend more on our military than the next 15 or so nations combined. How large should our military be? We spend too much. Where would you cut?
I think we spend more than all the other countries in the world combined, just by a little bit, but more than all the other countries in the world combined. I would look to reduce the size of the military, and I don't say defense, I say that it's offense and it's the military. I would be looking to reduce those expenditures by 20%, and that wouldn't be going back but a handful of years. I think you need a real skeptic at the table when it comes to military budgets. The fact that we have 100,000 troops on the ground in Europe? Does anybody see the logic in that? And yet it continues to go on and on and on. As I mentioned earlier, we have executive treaties not implemented by Congress. We have executive treaties with 69 countries that we are obliged to defend their borders. This just doesn't seem right. The fact that we have bases anywhere in the world when right now we can fly aircraft from the United States, and because of our refueling capabilities, we really don't need any Air Force bases. So how about a skeptic, and let's start with a 20% reduction in the military, which would not reduce our ability to provide for an impenetrable national defense. Defense.
Mr. Peterson.
My pick for Secretary of Defense, General Mad Dog Mattis, had a philosophy, and that is be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet. I do think we need a strong national defense, but the focus is on defense. We have not had an audit since before 9/11. As President of the United States, I will demand an audit of the Pentagon. The Pentagon, they spent $1.5 trillion on an F-35 program that can't even compete with the F-16. I will find the waste, fraud, and abuse, and we will make meaningful cuts to the military, and we will put a stop to the military-industrial complex of the United States.
Mr. McAfee, would you, as President, pull the United States out of NATO, the International Monetary Fund, and/or the United Nations?
Absolutely, on all three. There is no doubt.
Mr. Perry?
Absolutely, as soon as possible.
Governor Johnson?
I think that we should have diplomacy to the hilt. I mean, we should engage ourselves in diplomacy to avoid what would, in fact, and is, in fact, a military conflict. I think the greatest threat in the world right now is North Korea. At some point, Kim is going to have intercontinental ballistic missiles that work. How about engaging China in a hand-in-hand, let's do something about North Korea, let's do something about Kim, unify the Koreas, and be able to withdraw our 40,000 troops that are in South Korea.
Mr. Peterson, to pull the United States out of NATO, the International Monetary Fund, and/or the United Nations?
If the Congress were to send me appropriate legislation, absolutely.
Dr. Feldman?
I kind of like the United Nations because it doesn't do much, and it's like our Facebook account. It keeps track of what other people are doing. It tells us who our friends are. And it's often a big waste of time.
Mr. Perry, are libertarians isolationists?
Absolutely not. Calling me an isolationist for not wanting to invade Poland is like calling me a hermit because I don't go and invade my neighbor's fridge. Switzerland has one of the best foreign policies in the world, and they are in no way isolationist. How many people have ever had Swiss chocolate, Swiss cheese, and a Swiss Army knife? Non-intervention is not isolation.
Governor Johnson?
Make no mistake, if the United States is attacked, we will attack back. And we should have an invincible national defense, not offense. And so diplomacy to the hilt. Engage countries in talk, in negotiation. Ultimately, negotiation, I think, is free trade. Free trade, I think, unites the world, and that's something that needs to be always promoted. But no, the United States, as President of the United States, no, I'm not isolationist.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Peterson?
It is not we non-interventionists who are isolationists. It is those who go and bomb foreign countries and cause people to hate us that cause us to be more isolated in the world. But some are isolationists. And isn't isolationism splendid sometimes? We have Amish in this country, and they like to have their isolation. That's freedom. That's secession. People ought to be free to be isolated if they so desire. But it is not we non-interventionists who want us to be more isolated. It is time for the government to get the hell out of the Middle East and bring the troops home.
Dr. Feldman, are libertarians isolationists?
We're not isolationists. We just believe in intervening by dropping philanthropy, tourism, free speech, and free trade on other countries instead of bombs.
Mr. Matthew.
Is a country minding its own business isolationism? Is a country opening its borders to free trade and to immigration isolationism? No, it's the opposite of isolationism. Isolationism is wanting to impose your will, your culture, and your own way of life, and our own arrogance onto others in the world.